जागने वाले किसी बांग दरा से दिल हो.
My next question is, yeah, what red lines can be set for Gaza by the Arab countries or even other countries? I mean, even Joe Biden came up with a red line that, hey, you cannot invade Rafah. And after Netanyahu invaded Rafah, Biden, became against him. He called him an effing liar and all these kind of things. So why are not Arab countries or coming up with a red line for Gaza? I mean, cannot they intercept Israeli fighter jets? I mean, even in Pakistan, there are, we have those fighter jets that can intercept Israeli fighter jets as well, and many other countries can do that. So
Mm.
why are they not setting a red line for it? Cannot they intercept Israeli fighter jets and their fighter jet tanks, etc.?
I agree. It's like every red line that is set is just considered to be a red tape to cut by Netanyahu. It appears almost bloody-minded, in the sense that everything should be normalized, every atrocity should be normalized, and it's a "I will get away with it" mentality. And so any red line that's set has to be broken. In terms of why countries are not standing up for the Palestinians, with the exception of Iran, let's say, um, a lot of because you spoke about it, a lot of the Arab countries are either puppets for the Americans to massively simplify it, or they themselves have some kind of direct ties with the Israelis, um, or the Israelis have some kind of influence or control that means that the regimes that we're speaking of are so precarious that their survival is predicated on some kind of compliance with Israeli demands. And I mean, that requires a whole different podcast and investigation. But even the Egyptian case, you know, in this sense, Egypt is not an independent country. It has allowed, I'm not talking about the last, since October 2023, but going over the last 10 years, has allowed Israel to use its airspace to bomb in the name of the Palestinian, repressing the Palestinians. But this is meant to be a country, Egypt, that has a peace treaty with Israel that just keeps the peace. That's the image that you have, the most populous Arab country was at war with Israel, but now has this peace agreement, concessions were made, and all the rest of it. But at the same time, in reality, the Egyptian army has been doing the dirty work really for the Israelis in terms of maintaining the siege and the situation in North Sinai, but then also allowing the Israelis to use their airspace. So this concept that the Egyptian nation is that independent from Israel is an illusion, really. It's not a nice thing to have to say or admit, but Israel's web of influence and control is actually much greater than we may initially see or think. And we say Israel's siege on Gaza, but it is Israel and Egypt's siege on Gaza for almost 2 decades. So I hope that answers the question. All of these voices speaking out against the Israeli slaughter, they all have their own air forces, they all have their own armies. Why does no one do anything? Why did the Turks not do something? And we even hear exclamations from backbenchers in the UK, even conservative Tory backbenchers saying, why don't we send a flotilla to Gaza? We have a base, sovereign bases in Cyprus, which is just a couple of clicks away, from Gaza. But no one will do anything because the layers of fear of the Israeli lobby, of fear of the American paymasters, is so great that in many ways, we have a world where sort of no one has the courage to do anything, and it's almost like no one is willing to call the bluff. And even the Arab nations struggle to manifest any meaningful response. And I think that with the Abraham Accords, and I know that the genocide has paused the normalization with the Saudis, but the Saudi Trump White House ties are very strong. And I don't think that anyone can objectively say that, for example, the Saudis have the best interests of the Palestinians at heart. It's just realpolitik, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and you have previously mentioned about that it's probably a psychological war, right? It's more of a psychological war, and some analysts talk about it's about the stakes, right? What stakes are you willing to put to this region, right? This is the main question because Iran showed it to Israel and they stopped. So countries like Russia and China, they are also pro-Palestine. So you rightly mentioned, if there is that courage, and if there is that, because Israel and America, I was just reading, they have this concept of doomsday deal, doomsday concept. You have to. So if you give the same amount of psychology, they can stop. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, but it only requires, just to counteract that, and I agree with everything you said, but it only requires a couple of acts of resistance for a sense of momentum in the opposite direction. Um, and if there's a sense of the sort of the tide turning, um, although of course the UN Security Council is still controlled by Israel's allies or Israel's paymasters, that we can see a sea change, maybe faster than we think.
Yeah.